Hello, this is Dr. Roger Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions and Functional Orthokinetics. And so today what I wanted to do, kind of wrapping up the day, I wanted to do a little blurb on the extrapyramidal nervous system. You've heard me say the term many different times. It's a term that in the past hasn't been used very much, but it's becoming more and more in vogue. And it's very vital to the work that we do as structural correction specialists, very vital in terms of what drives our brain. And if you've had a chance to watch the video that I did on the two stimuli that drive the brain, the two major stimuli, which is gravity and breathing, and the systems that are involved in driving the frequency of the brain, the central integrative state of each of the cells within your brain, you had a chance to hear a little bit about that. But what I wanted to do today was to actually divide it out to show exactly what those component parts are. But as we look at it, you've seen me talk about the three tissues that have to change: the white tissue, the red tissue, and the neural tissue in structural correction. The white tissue being the fibers. We spent a lot of time talking about that. The red tissue, which is the muscles, because they have blood in them, but these are the type 1 slow twitch postural muscle fibers, the stabilizer muscle fibers. And then we talk about the nervous system, and we say the brainstem, the cerebellum, which is actually the same thing. The pons is actually the pons and the cerebellum are the same thing. The cerebellum is the budding, the outpouching of the cerebellum. There are 8 major nuclei within the cerebellum, and it gives rise to the cerebellum. And then the extrapyramidal nervous system, which includes the involuntary parts of the nervous system. And so when we say nervous system, we're talking about brainstem, cerebellum, and we're talking about the extrapyramidal system. These things are reflexogenic. Our movement system that is voluntary includes our brain. We call it the pyramid. It's on the top, the pyramidal nervous system, and it works the voluntary muscles, which are the more surface muscles. The farther you get from the center of your true core, which is from your spine, the farther you get away from that, the more voluntary it becomes until you get to the hands and the feet. And those are truly pyramidal in nature. So we talk about inputs and outputs. The extrapyramidal nervous system is reflexogenic. That means that it operates, it receives information in, and that it responds to those things. You don't want to have to think about posture. You don't want to think about balance. You don't want to think about gait. You want them to happen. And this is what gives you the underlying stability of balance, gait, posture. And so when we look at the inputs, we're talking about the sensory inputs include the spinocerebellar system, which includes the inputs from the joints and primarily from the muscle spindle fibers, but also from the joint mechanoreceptors, from the Golgi tendon organs. All those things are feeding information in. And when we talk about this, particularly about the spine itself, we're talking about 400 million nerve fibers from here to here. Most of those are from here up, most of those are from here up, and most of those are between the skull C1 and C2. When we also have inputs, some inputs coming in from the gracilis and cuneatus, the larger diameter fibers inputs, and some from the smaller diameters from the anterolateral system. And then when we look into the head itself, we obviously are getting information from the sensors in the head, the labyrinth, which includes the superior and inferior vestibular nerve, and the cochlear nerve, which gives us some inputs from the hearing, which are a part of that reflexogenic system. We respond, we're getting information obviously from the eyes, and we're going to see that in just a second. We're getting information from our ability to receive information from the proprioceptive input. All of that is involved. The major motor output tracts are the rubrospinal system, which is the flexor system. We're born with that, right? When my son was born, my first son, I was always amazed because he was like this, and I'd lay him on the table and his arms and legs wouldn't touch the table. I'd go, wow, this is amazing. Well, he hadn't developed the posterior compartment. It was all anterior compartment, which is that red nucleus. And so he had to develop the posterior aspect, the posterior compartment, which is the muscles literally that becomes our adult nervous system and adult brain. Also the vestibulospinal system. That is where we create the tone, particularly the tone that's going to cause us to be upright, that major part of that posterior compartment system. And it's going to give us, it's going to take information from our head sensors, and it's going to feed the tone of the muscles so that we can remain upright against that tendency towards being forward and against gravity. The tactospinal tract, the tactospinal system, which is your visual input that allows you to respond to visual stimuli reflexively. The ping pong ball is coming towards your head from the side, and bam, you're out of the way just in time. That was a reflex. And if it's coming straight on, bang, it hits you in the head because you were busy watching it, you didn't reflexogenically move. These are reflexes. The olivospinal spinal tract, which is going to coordinate between the right and the left sides of the brainstem, so that they're doing coordinated activities. And then ultimately, and this is the most exciting part of everything that we do here, is in structural correction, the mesencephalic reticular system and the pontine reticular system. Now, when we learn to walk and stand and move, we're developing a need for fuel supply for all the things that are doing this. Not just the muscles, but also the nervous system itself. The nervous system itself has a high demand, metabolic demand. And so it's being asked to do stuff. Well, we need the fuel supply. The mesencephalic reticular formation is the sympathetic motor output, sympathetic nervous system. Whereas the pontine reticular system is the parasympathetic response. That's the rest, recovery, relaxation, digestion, breathing. I mean, all of those things come under that parasympathetic response, and it comes through that system. So you can imagine it's reflexogenically wired in. And as I'm learning to crawl as a child, and as I'm learning to walk, I'm wiring in the very reflex of providing the fuel for the activity. So it's happening in real time. It's not just that I'm learning to move this arm. It's not just that I'm learning to stabilize as I do that, stabilize on this side so I don't fall over, stabilize the shoulder and arm so that it has a stable shunting for the spurt moving activity. It's not just that I'm going to get those activities, I'm also going to supply the fuel for it, including the parts of the brainstem, the parts of the spinal cord, brainstem, and brain that are providing that activity, that are going to create it, that I'm literally doing the autonomic response. And then immediately when I stop, I'm triggering into the pontine reticular part, which is going to recover me, which is going to take me and cause me to become stronger because I recovered from it, and cause me to allow that system to be ready and better for the next time I do it, right? And the sympathetic nervous system, we know whenever we engage it, it creates inflammation. That's the mesencephalic reticular formation. But the reticular system of the pontine system is going to resolve that inflammation. It's not that you have inflammation that's a problem. It's that you're not recovering from it. It's you're not resolving it. And that's the parasympathetic response. And so these are the tracks that are involved in the extrapyramidal nervous system. And imagine the kind of effect, just to give you a little taste of what we're talking about with respect to utilizing the weighting system. Imagine that I could reflexively cause the head to be in a better position, causing the orbits to be in a more natural, optimal position, straightforward, so it doesn't have any skew deviation for you functional neurologists out there. We can modify this and get rid of the skew deviation We could change the head position so that the orbits are optimally in their position, which is obviously also leveling and symmetrizing the positions of the labyrinths, which include the otoliths and the semicircular canals, so that they're in their optimal position. Changing the symmetry and position and postural positions of the structure of the body so that they can optimally respond front to back, side to side to the forces of gravity. Optimally changing the position of the structure of breathing mechanism and making sure that it functions optimally so that we not only get the maximum amount of oxygen in, but also that we use the movement part of that system to maximally drive the brain. Whoa! This is a little bit different than just throwing a head weight on, right? We're talking about putting weights on the body that it will change this reflexogenically so that it learns to do it differently. We're going to change the white tissue, we're going to change the red tissue, and it's very involved, but take a look at how heavily involved that extrapyramidal nervous system is involved. I hope that gives you a little bit bigger, broader scope and picture, panoramic view of the extrapyramidal effect. Maybe at some point we'll do a little bit more with respect to the brainstem and the areas that are affected in the brainstem, but I hope that this will not only give you a more clear picture and vision of what we're doing as a structural correction specialist, but I also hope that it will get you thinking and maybe even asking some new questions. We'd definitely love to get questions from you, and happy to do many more videos for answering those questions. Thank you very much.